To the board a motion for Mr. Harry Jenkins to preside at this meeting.
Second.
The motion has been made and properly second. A call for a question. There's any discussion. Everyone in favor?
Yes.
Go by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
At this time, we'd like to say good evening. We certainly would like to welcome our parents and students and all of you here to this board meeting on this evening. We are down. We have 3 members who are on the line. So even though you only see 4 up here, we have all 7 that's present tonight. We're going to begin this meeting by asking that we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and we will have invocation by Mr. Tim Mabry.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for this night and this time that we're gathered, Lord, to do the business of Colleton County School District. We ask You to bless the hearts, open the minds, and help us to understand each other's differences. We don't always have the same opinion, but we all have the same goal. We thank You for those that are here in attendance and those that are watching. And we ask You, Lord, to just bless this board for the remainder of this evening, that we can agree to disagree, but come to the final decision of what's best for the Colleton County School District. We ask your blessings upon this board and this district. In Christ's name I pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Baker. As we come tonight, we thank you for being here. At this time, we are going to begin by asking for the approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting December the 14th and the special board meeting on January the 6th, 2022.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the minutes of December 14th, 2021, special board meeting January 6th, 2022.
Second.
Properly moved and second that we accept the minutes of the regular board meeting on December the 14th and the special board meeting on January the 6th. All in favor? Let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Mr. Jenkins, could you take you're going to need to take a roll call vote for each of the 3 board members that are participating by telephone. So you'll need to call their name and get their vote individually for the record.
Okay, individually, ayes have it, so it is ordered. We have before here, we'd like to ask Mr. Charles Murdoch, what is your vote?
Yes. Aye.
Aye, okay. Ms. Patricia Simmons?
Aye.
Ms. Sharon Whitkin?
Whitkin, aye.
Ayes have it, so it is ordered. The vote is unanimous. At this time, we move down to the legislative update. Ms. Patricia Simmons is not here. Ms. Patricia Simmons, are you prepared to do that? Do we put that on hold to the next board meeting?
Yes, we can put it on to the next board meeting. The only thing I want to do is remind everyone that there is a conference, annual conference that is coming up February 17th to 20th, which will be on Hilton Head. I know with COVID and everything, I'm not sure who will decide to go and who will not, but I just want to give you a reminder that, those dates are available. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons. At this time, we move down to student and staff recognition. At this time, we're going to ask Superintendent Dr. Valerie Cade to come forward.
Good evening to everyone.
Good evening.
And welcome to our visitors, our community. Thank you so very much for being here. Tonight, we have several recognitions. We're going to begin with just some of our student recognitions. If you notice, our students are not here this evening. We do have a couple of our students here. I chose not for them to come tonight, but to do it virtually. A few of them are here. We will recognize those students and get all of their gifts to them, their recognitions to them, and we will have them come at another time when it's a little more safer for us to do so. I'd like to recognize Ivory Green from Blackstreet Early Childhood Center. She is the student of the month there. We have Jaden Jenkins from Hendersonville Elementary School. We also have Jamari Cohen from Colleton County Middle School. We have DeAndre Hicks. He is here from Colleton High School. I will read about DeAndre, and I think I saw DeAndre here. Yes, DeAndre, would you stand, please? So I'll tell you what they say about DeAndre. And I've noticed this to be so very, very true. His grades consistently show excellent progress. He has an A average in all his classes this semester. He holds the office of state governor within the South Carolina Youth and Government Organization. He also leads by serving on the CCHS Student Council. He tutors other students. He is Fred Cooper at CCHS mascot for football and basketball. DeAndre is an active member of the youth group of Faith Church where he sings in the praise team. He wishes to pursue a major in theater, law, or political science, and he's applied to Anderson University and Howard University. He is helpful and very industrious, helps all of his students. He is someone who you can call upon, and he's a Distinguished Delegate Award in 2020. He's Fine Arts Short Sermon Vocal Solo Award winner. He's on varsity tennis, Rookie Player of the Year. He's the CCHS Athletic Principal Scholar Award, and he's the South Carolina Youth Advocate Program. So we'd like to recognize DeAndre Hicks. Congratulations, DeAndre, and you will get a bag of wonderful gifts, and in that bag will be a $25 gift certificate for you to use. Okay, thank you. We also have Susan Ann Flowers from the Adult Learning Center, Adult Education Center, as well. We have our athletes, student athletes of the month. Adam Buckner is for basketball. We have Bailey Cox. I think Bailey is here. Thank you. I'll read about Bailey. So let me tell you all about Miss Bailey. Bailey is from volleyball. She's a sophomore that plays varsity volleyball and softball. I'm nominating her because she is true all-around athlete. She excels at anything she puts her heart and mind to. While playing volleyball, she gives it her all and hustles like no one else. I've always been so impressed with Bailey since she was in the 8th grade. She's one of the best athletes I know. Do not let her age fool you. If you ever get a chance to watch Bailey play volleyball or softball, I promise you, you'll thoroughly enjoy it. As a student, she is smart and very respectful and does well in school. I couldn't think of anyone better to represent us, and that comes from her coach. Thank you, Bailey. You too will get a bag of gifts that go right along with being a volleyball athlete, and you'll also get a $25 gift certificate to use as your wish. And then we have 2 more athletes, and that's Olivia Brown from middle school cheer, and then we have Devon Thiessen, I believe, from middle school wrestling and middle school football. We will recognize all of those students in person, but they will get all of their possessions. Okay? Thank you so very much. Now, moving right along. It is now time for Clean School of the Month. We do not have a recognition at this time. We'll do that next month. And now, school board recognition. School board members, it's my privilege, my pleasure to be able to recognize all of our school board members at this time. January is School Board Recognition Month. We'll begin by reading some award recipients, first of all. I'd like to be able to recognize Mr. Charles Murdoch while he is not in person. Congratulations, Mr. Murdoch, on achieving 10 years of school board service for Colleton County School District. On behalf of the officers and staff of the South Carolina School Boards Association, we thank you. You've played a critical role in guiding your district and have invested countless hours to improve public education. The South Carolina School Board Association is happy to be a part of this recognition by providing a lapel pin for you to wear at school board meetings and school board events, and a certificate. Your name and years of service will also appear in the annual convention program. What an accomplishment you have made. Again, congratulations. And if anyone at South Carolina School Board Association can be of assistance to you in any way, please do not hesitate to give us a call. And thank you so very much, Mr. Charles Murdoch, who serves as our vice chair for his 10 years of service on the school board. And here's his certificate.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Okay, now, see, we have a lot of goodies for you tonight. We'll get all of the goodies to all of those school board members who are not here. But before I present all of the recognitions, I do want to call out our culinary arts department there in the back. During school board recognition month, it's very important that we recognize our school board members for their dedicated service. You give lots of hours, you give lots of time, and you provide lots of support. You hear the community's wishes, and you carry through with as many of the community wishes as you possibly can. So we thank you for your service. It was very important for me. I heard a comment you made, Mr. Mabry. You said you wanted some of those goodies that our wonderful chef, Williams does, and his wonderful students. So tonight, they have prepared some fabulous goodies for you as recognition from TCT. So, Chef Williams, I'd like for you to be able to provide to them what you have provided with your students tonight. It's necessary that I take this time. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. So my students and I prepared some wonderful, delicious goodies for you guys in this basket. First, we start off with some homemade artisan bread. With that bread, we got some delicious homemade honey butter for your bread. We also did a variety of other treats, some homemade caramel popcorn, some delicious biscottis to have in the morning with your coffee, dipped in chocolate. We also got some delicious candy pecans. And last but not least, everyone's favorite, homemade candy apples. Yeah. So you got a lot of desserts in here. I'd like to thank my students, Essence, Grant, and Julian Vasquez for the help with the delicious baskets for each one of you guys here today. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we separate, we share out the ones of the board members that are not here. Since they're not here, they just miss out. They just miss out on the treat. So
Yeah, we'll take it to them.
I need a second for that motion.
Chef Williams, before you go, I just want to say at the last meeting I did request that we at least get a taste, but this is wonderful. But thank you so much for what y'all do over at TCTC.
And that is not all. Requested by Dr. K. We also have a light refreshment in the back for you guys tonight. Some good meals prepared by the hands of the students. So after the meeting, you can also grab some food back also.
Thank you so much.
It's a great job.
Yes. Thank you so very much, Chef Williams, and thank you, students. Each one of our schools went above and beyond this year to provide some special treats for you. So at this time, Bells has recognized Mr. Charles Murdoch. Our schools have prepared a bag or a basket or something of the sort for your pleasure, to thank you for your wonderful service. So Charles Murdoch is recognized by bells. Mary Jones is recognized by Black Street Early Learning Center. And Mr. Bowman is recognized by Cottageville. Sharon Whitkin is recognized by Forest Hills. Harry Jenkins is recognized by Hendersonville. Tim Mabry is recognized by Northside Elementary. Patricia Simmons is recognized by Colleton Middle. And all 7 of our board members are recognized by Colleton County High School, as well as TCTC. That's why you got all of the baskets from them. And Colleton County High School has prepared for you each board member gets their personal apron that says school boards make a difference.
Go ahead and say thank you again.
And don't worry, we have not left out our wonderful board attorney. He's included in all of the presents. And the superintendent's office recognizes Attorney Bird Duffy for all of his dedicated support over all of these years. Thank you so very much for all that you have done.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And we have one more.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We got a few more. Just hold on. It's necessary. Okay. And TCTC, the greenhouse, has a $20 gift certificate. And they're all here in the back. So you have a $20 gift certificate from TCTC Greenhouse. You have one shepherd hook from Mr. Mabry. You have a $20 gift certificate from TCTC. You have a shepherd hook from the welding program. Mr. Murdoch, you have the same thing as well for each one of the board members. So you have a shepherd hook as well as a $20 gift certificate. All right, how wonderful.
Let's go with them.
Okay, you have the
And there are also stepping stones from the masonry department for all of the board members as well.
Okay.
There's a choice between sunflowers and I think turtles.
Oh my.
And those are made
You
by
have-
the masonry students.
You have a stepping stone made by our students. Boy, they went all out for you tonight. So we'll get all of this. Last but not least, from the superintendent's office, you have a specially designed basket with a polo shirt that says CCSD School Board. And you also have a Yeti cup that has your insignia on it.
And these bags are from HR.
And then the other bags are from HR. So thank you so very much for your service. And you are not left out, Attorney Duffy. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Would the community please join me in thanking our board members for that? I have lots of certificates and all for you. I'll get them all for you. We have certificates from the Colleton County Education Association for you as well. It comes from Hendersonville, but we'll provide all of that to you before tonight. So thank you so very much.
And I have a presentation from Hendersonville Elementary School.
Okay.
You want to bring that up?
Yes, sir. We have a special presentation, which I did not know about. We're going to bring it up on the screen, Mr. Gruber?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, it's getting ready to play.
All right, so this is just the presentation that was sent to me, and I'm just going to run through all the slides.
Says thank you for all that you do. Thanks to the Board of Education for your leadership, commitment to our students, staff, and communities. Thank you for your dedication and hard work for our school district. The leadership team, they have several comments there. They'd like to be able to thank you. You can read it at your leisure. We'll make sure we send it to you by email. And then pre-K tells you you're appreciated. Looks like every grade level has done something for you. Kindergarten. First grade. Second. How nice. Third. Fourth grade. Fifth. Sped department. Our related arts. They all provide thank you. We'll email it to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We certainly like to thank all of you for your contributions to the school board. But before we even notice them, we'd like to thank those students who were here tonight, Mr. Hicks and Ms. Cox. We thank you for the job well done. Keep up the good work, because certainly all that you do represents the school board, the school district in a positive manner. So keep up the good work. Also, we would like to thank all of our athletes and everybody who was recognized tonight, whether you were here or not. Everything that you do positive is going to impact us in a positive manner. So keep up the good work, because the school board, certainly we know that we're working, but we're working for a cause. And that cause is for the betterment of the school district of Colleton County, staff, but most important, our students. And we say to you, keep up the good work. At this time, do we have any public input?
I didn't get any. Did anyone have any public input? I didn't get a form, just making sure.
Okay, so I'll give consent. At this time, under old business, new business, we're going to go down to consideration of school board meeting to be held in virtual format. This is going to be done by Dr. Valerie Caden.
I'm going to refer this to attorney. I'll refer this to Attorney Bert Duffy.
Thank you, ma'am. We had some questions pop up towards the end of last week, beginning of this week, due to maybe the number of board members who are going to be able to have present at this meeting. And the questions were, under what circumstances could we be able to return to a virtual board meeting format? As you know, now we're having this is a live board meeting where the public is invited to come to the board meeting, and everybody who can be here is here. We do have 3 members who are participating in the live meeting by telephone. However, the meeting itself is live, not virtual. So the question came up, under what circumstances would the district be permitted to return to a virtual board meeting format if necessary? I have to give credit to Ms. Whitcomb for this, because she's the one who dug and found that back in July of 2020, right at the beginning of the COVID issues, the board adopted a temporary policy, which is EBC-R3. That policy addresses when virtual board meetings may be scheduled. It gives the chairperson, with the advice of the superintendent, the ability to change the board meeting format to a virtual meeting, meaning everybody participates virtually, not a live meeting where we have 1 or 2 in on a telephone call. It must be done in an emergency circumstance. So in other words, as it relates to COVID, if we have where we cannot get enough people live, or the COVID statistics are raised to a sufficient level that the chair and the superintendent deem it to be necessary, they can schedule the meeting as a virtual meeting. We would have to provide sufficient notice, of course, to the public, that the meeting was going to be held all virtual. We would have to provide the ability for the public to participate in the virtual meeting, which Mr. Gruber does an excellent job at that, frankly, over the past year and a half. But we would have to give them sufficient notice to be able to participate virtually as well, the public I'm talking about. And we would also go back at that point, per policy, go back to receiving public comment in advance of the virtual meeting by email. So that policy is in existence. Given the current circumstances, it's possible it could be utilized. We just have to take it on a meeting-by-meeting basis at this point. But it would be the decision of the chair with the advice of the superintendent and a demonstration of an emergency circumstance.
Is there, if needed, if it's needed, then?
Yes, sir.
If it's not needed, then we'll just have business as usual.
Yes, sir. That's exactly right. That's right. It's if we're able to have our meetings like you have been having them live, we will continue to do that. But if necessary, this temporary policy does allow. The issue that we were having was, if we require the board to determine to go virtual, that creates a problem because we can't have a board meeting to determine that the board meeting needs to go virtual. So in this policy, the board gave the chair, with the advice of the superintendent, the ability to make that determination when circumstances of an emergency have come up since the last board meeting.
Any discussion or questions about Mr. Duffy's comments?
Pretty clear.
Any questions from any of the members online?
None.
Who?
I'm clear.
Is this Ms. Murdoch?
I'm clear with it.
The only question that I would like to ask is, if we decide to do a virtual meeting, when we put the agenda out, do we put out as or how would we go about, we would have to go back and retrend that?
The agenda would have to state that the meeting was going to be held virtually, would have to state the format, for example, Zoom or WebEx, whatever the format is, and then would have to give instructions to the public on how to appear at the meeting. It's my understanding, actually, that Dr. Cave and her staff have been working on recently the procedures internally to set up the virtual meeting. So, but the agenda would have to set forth all of those details, and the fact that the public would be entitled to give public comment by email prior to the meeting, which would be read at the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions?
I do have one.
Mr. Bowman?
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. I do have one question. I don't know how applicable this question would be, but I think it's something to think about. Now, state law says that we must present or adopt places and times for our regular board meetings for the entire calendar year. Is there a proviso or is there some type of opening in state legislation that would allow us to change a regular board meeting to virtual? Where did this temporary policy come from? Just the School Board Association or?
The School Board Association, yeah. It was originally, the temporary policy is a model draft from the School Board Association, and you're not changing the annual notice provision. You're supposed to tell where your regular meetings are going to be. You can actually make a change to that during the year if you give proper notice. For example, we had the celebration at the PAC. So you are able to change that even though you give the annual notice, as long as you give sufficient notice of the change. In this case, though, we're not changing the location, we're changing the format to a virtual format altogether. So the School Board Association created this policy to allow for a procedure. Really, again, the purpose is so that the procedure can be in place to handle emergencies that pop up from the last time we had a board meeting, because the board can't make a decision if it hasn't occurred yet, the emergency. So that's really what the purpose of the procedure is, to give that authority in an emergency situation.
Yeah, I thought it would be valuable for us to make sure that that's clear to the public, because especially as my colleagues know, in these days and times, people will come up and say, well, y'all, they knew that topic was going to be a hot button topic, and they decided to change it to virtual so nobody could come before them. And I just wanted to make sure that it's understood that it's an emergency situation, like our attorney said, that would not be able to be determined prior to the last board meeting. So that's what I wanted to make sure that everybody understood.
Well, and that's a good point, Mr. Bowman, and that's really why the procedures related to the agenda require that we only discuss matters that are properly noticed on the agenda, so that the public does have that advance notice of what we're going to talk about, and therefore they would be able to then put their public comment in on the topics that we're going to talk about prior to the meeting, to be read at the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions, comments? Let me move on down to 6.02, capital project sale, property tax, Colleton County School District sale tax proposal, Dr. Valerie Kay.
They have
Okay, we received notice, good evening again. We received notice that there will be a capital project sales tax process. The Colleton County Council approved resolution number 21R10 on April 6, 2021, creating the Capital Project Sales Tax Commission. So this will appear on the ballot in November 2022 for our voters to impose a 1-cent sales tax. The revenues generated by the tax may be used to fund and defray costs of capital improvements, which are defined in the South Carolina Code 4103030. The Commission has directed that all applications for the capital projects that are to be considered must be reviewed and approved by local, county, and municipal governments. The submissions are to be reviewed and must have supporting documentation, but not limited to the full description of the project. The document was forwarded to us. The deadline is January 24th, 2022 at 5 p.m. The district office team of my executive team has met, and we have made a decision in terms of the Colleton County Capital Project Sales Tax Commission. I'm coming to you this evening to provide that project initiation form to you. I was in collaboration with the two offices here, Mr. Ross Oakley and Mr. John Culberth, today, having conversation with them about the supporting documentation and what we needed to be providing. This is a draft copy. It is not finalized yet, but it is in near completion form. I have not had the opportunity to review it with our attorney at this point, but I did want to bring it before you because it is due on the 24th. We just received the document last week. So I had to bring it to you at the 12th hour because we received it at the 12th hour. I will read it verbatim as to what it says. Does the attorney want to have a copy?
Yes, ma'am, I have a copy. The topic, though, is a topic on which I'm recused.
Oh, yes, it is a topic he's refused. I'm sorry. Colleton seeks to create a facility that will provide an educational learning facility to support the transition for 5th grade to 6th grade, where historically students struggle academically, behaviorally, and emotionally. The design is an intentional and unique approach to support 6th graders to grow and flourish during their middle school years. With Colleton Middle School currently designed as a priority school, this restructuring of grade span configuration would allow for a decrease in the total school population and separate facility design to support thematic education designed to meet those learning gaps identified for transitioning students. The project scope is within low, medium, or high, developing an effective learning environment designed to improve 6th grade learning outcomes, create creative learning spaces such as a STEAM room, learning commons, art, music, keyboard lab, exercise and movement room, food services, counselor suite, classrooms, and administrative spaces to support teaching and learning. What I have done is work with my staff. ESSA funds has been allocated and approved at $6.9 million. CCSD capital projects, we would pull $700,000, and then hopefully from the 1% sales tax, we would ask for $6 million, which would be a total of $12 million for the project. And that's what I'd like to submit as an educational facility, and the requester would be myself, and the department director is Ken Blakely. I'll review this with Mr. Ross Oakley today. But I need to bring it before you, and I do apologize, Attorney Duffy, because he is refused.
So this is just for our information?
It's for your information, but it also needs your blessing or your approval for me to be able to carry it forward. So I would need an approval from you to be able to offer this as a submission on behalf of the school board.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Okay, I'm sorry, Reverend Jenkins, may I ask a question?
Yes, yes. Who's that? Ms. Whitkin?
Yes, may I ask a question?
Sure, go forward.
Thank you. Dr. King, is identified the facility will provide, do we know that this is submission for a new facility or a renovated facility, or do we have to specify that in the proposal?
You don't have to specify in the proposal. I put 6th grade academy new project design. That's why I named it that way. It's a 6th grade academy new project design. So regardless if it's a renovation or a new project, it doesn't matter. You're welcome.
Okay, any other?
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful idea
Mr.
to,
Bowman.
thank you, Mr. Jenkins. I think it's a wonderful idea to submit this as a part of the 1% sales tax capital projects. Of course, you know, other people in the county will be, or other entities in the county will also be submitting proposed projects, if you will, to be considered, you know, for this 1% money that we're going to accrue as a result of taxes in the county. So I hope we get selected. I think it's a great thing for the county to have buy-in on this project as well. So at this time, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we support the superintendent in submitting our Colleton County Capital Project Sales Tax submission for 6th grade academy new project design.
Been properly moved and second.
Not second yet. We got to get a second.
We got a second.
We have to get one.
Yeah, we need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, who's second?
Ms. Simmons.
Charles Rudolph, second.
Charles Murdoch, okay. Okay, before we vote from the members who are present here, we will listen to the individual members online. Mr. All in favor of this, let it be known by aye.
Good discussion, I'm sorry.
Ms. Whitkin?
Sure, I just wanted to know, do we know when this project will potentially be approved? Is that the case?
I'm not sure when approval will actually happen. I'm not sure that date. That date was not in the correspondence information. When the approval will come, it says the commission will review the initial list at their next meeting on February 1st, at 6 p.m. to review the initial list, and further information will be provided after that for the path forward. So they don't tell you when it's approved, they just tell you when it's going to be reviewed, and that's February 1st.
Thank you. The reason that I asked is because of the combination of funds. Obviously, if this is a non-funded project, we would have to make up the money somewhere else in order to proceed, and that stall in determining the funding could be complicated, which is why I asked. Thank you.
All in favor, let it be known by the usual sign, raise your hand. We're going to ask Ms. Whitkin, how do you vote?
Whitkin, no.
Mr. Murdoch?
Yes.
Ms. Simmons?
Ms. Simmons?
100%. Aye.
All in favor here, show of hands. Okay, we have 5 in favor, 2 opposed. Am I correct? Okay. Properly moving second, and we've carried the motion. So ayes have it, so it is ordered. At this time, it is official by 5 to 2 vote.
Thank you so very much. I'll submit the project.
Next, our overnight field requests, Collin County High School Student Council, Collin County High School Chorus, Dr. Valerie Cade.
We have 2 overnight field trips that are coming to us. One is coming from Heather Mushrush, and it's for the Colleton County High School to go to the state convention. It's for the student council to go to the state convention. The trip departs on March 11, 2022, and it returns on March 13, 2022. It is for, the cost per student is $250. The number of students will be 20, the number of adults will be 2. I'd like to seek approval for these children to be able to go. This is an overnight field trip for the children to be able to attend the state for the student council.
Okay. Do we have any comment, questions about this field trip?
Also have one additional trip.
Do you want us to do both together?
I would like for you to do both
I
together.
have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Are they doing a fundraiser? How are the funds are being provided?
The budget code is the student council. They are doing fundraisers, but they're also using student council funds. They have done a fundraiser as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I do have one. Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. When students travel under our quote-unquote blessings, I mean, do they have to adhere to our like masking ordinance or masking rules when they do that?
When they're traveling on our facilities, they do. When they're traveling on our buses, they do.
Okay, so I have a little bit of concern about our students attending a convention of this sort, because I'm sure it's going to be a lot of people there. We all have concerns about COVID now, and it is a 3-day convention at a high school in West Columbia. Some of the highest transmissions of COVID now is among school-age children. And I don't know if we even have the ability to make sure that when they're attending this conference, do we know the rules of the conference as it relates to COVID protocol safety? I don't-
That's a very good question. I do not know the rules of the conference. I don't know that information. I can find that information out. They're not going till March, so I could come back to you again with this in February meeting. Attorney Duffy, can you make me aware of the rules of our children when they are at another field trip, if they have to abide by our masking rules?
Right, so our rule, as you stated, is on school transportation, they have to abide by our rules, and at school-related activities, which this is student council convention, so I would deem this a school-related activity that would require that while they're at the convention, they comply with our masking requirements. That would not be once they leave is this overnight, right?
It is overnight.
Right, so you've got time periods there where they're gonna be at the activity versus not at the activity. But while they're at the activity, our current policy would require that they comply with face coverings.
Yeah, that's good to know. I think it should be a concern. It might not be a concern, obviously, for a lot of people, but I know we can't make them, or we can't request. I don't want to use the word make. That sounds really rigid. We can't request for them to wear masks like in their hotel rooms and so forth and so on. But I wish we knew what the COVID protocol, safety protocols were for this conference. And I understand what our attorney just said. If I don't know which would apply, if the South Carolina Association of Student Council said, okay, at this convention, masks are not required.
So,
Will our students still?
So they would need to comply with our requirement. If the convention had a stricter requirement, they would need to comply with that too to be eligible to get into the convention. And I'm assuming that the convention is indoors because we have different rules for outdoor activities, obviously. So if this convention is indoors, they would have to comply with our rules. And if the conventions is stricter, they would also have to comply with theirs to participate.
All very good questions. I can find out what the rules are.
Yeah, that would be great, but I think I'm a little more comfortable because we've had that disclosure relative to them having to adhere at least to our school district protocols while they're at the convention.
You could also, if you were to decide to vote tonight, you can make the acceptance of the trip contingent on their compliance with the face covering requirements while they're in attendance at the convention. Specifically, the motion could make it contingent on that requirement.
Brother Deacon, may I say something?
Sure.
Just on that point, I mean, I agree with what Mr. Bowman has asked for as far as, making sure that they wear their mask. But this board also approved an overnight field trip in December for the bands, and I know we have another overnight field trip to also consider, and we didn't make specific any type of mask requirements or anything. So, I just kind of want to point that out and make sure that we're consistent in our approval.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful point, because we can. But I also think that in December, I don't know when that band trip was even. I can't remember when it was going to occur. But in December, that current state under which we voted to approve that field trip was not parallel to the current state we're in now, as it relates to COVID protocols as such. So you make a very valid point. However, I think if I'm wrong, somebody can correct me, obviously. I think our attorney just said, even if we don't put the contingency in the motion, it's still expected that they would adhere to our inside COVID protocol, safety protocols anyway. So that field trip that we approved in December for the band would still have to adhere to our safety protocols for COVID. If I'm wrong, somebody tell me I'm wrong.
I believe you're absolutely correct, Mr. Bowman. And I think in the aspect of it, of course, you know, when you're faced with an issue such as a resurgence of COVID, I think it's not just something that the school board thinks about for the school itself, but I also think these programs that are offered and these trips, it's also strongly considered. Just to say it and to move it, try to get it, you know, just to say, I would vote in favor for both of these. I believe that the students and the administrators that will be attending that and those that will be there will be of the same concern that we are because of COVID. I think we have to put a little bit of faith in them to follow it. And of course, we don't want anything coming back on us. That's the main thing. We don't get sick on a field trip and then expect it to be something that the school district is responsible for. Because we have policies and procedures in place to protect you as well as us. And but you know, I have to say that I think it would be wrong to all of a sudden inject that mandatory or the wording of putting it in for them to follow policy and procedure because it's already there. I think that's understood.
That's right.
As long as the administrators that are going with it make sure they follow that, then we have something to say, hey, we told them, we did it. But we come back to them. So
Yeah,
I agree with what you're saying. I do.
And that's the value of having discussion about it, because now it's on record that we actually discussed it and it's understood. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
As it relates to the Universal Studios trip, that's part of the question I was mentioning about outdoor versus indoor. Universal Studios, as of the end of December, reinstituted its indoor mask policy. So they have, on their properties, they have an indoor mask policy, all indoors, including restaurants and so forth. Outdoors, there is no mask requirement. So their policy right now is essentially the same as ours as far as that particular field trip goes.
All right, at this time, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, I don't want to cut off discussion.
We'll entertain a motion to that effect.
So you're gonna vote on both of them at the same time? I haven't mentioned the other one, but it's to Universal Studios for the choir. Okay.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that the board accept and approve the overnight trips for Colleton County High School's chorus overnight field trip, and then also Colleton County High School Student Council overnight field trip.
That's it.
Okay, I second.
Properly moved and second that we approve the overnight field trip request for the South Carolina Association of Student Council, which will be held on March 11th through the 13th in West Columbia, and the Colleton County Chorus trip, Universal Studios, on March 17th through the 20th in Orlando, Florida. Comes a question. All in favor, let it be known by the youth to sign. Mrs. Whitkin, how do you vote?
Whitkin, yes.
Ms. DeMurdoch?
Yes.
Ms. Simmons?
Yes.
Here? It's unanimous. Properly moved and second that we approve this. It has been approved and accepted. Thank you. At this time, we will have our superintendent's report, Ms. Mary Jones.
We have our audit report next. Oh, yes. Because they traveled in, I wanted to put it up closer so she could travel back to Charleston.
Oh. Our audit report. Ms. Barrett? Ms. Barrett, would you introduce our audit report, please? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. This is Ms. Kim Davis with Elliott Davis. She's going to be presenting the audit report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. There should be some slides up on the screen. If I can't see it, just let me know. But I'm just going to kind of go over the audit process and the results of financials for you. You can flip through some of these slides a little quickly. Just kind of our disclaimer. And then agenda. So go over our audit objective and opinion. Sorry, that's kind of small. Reporting that we're required to have under government auditing standards. Some financial statement highlights. Go over some new funding sources and audit impact this year, and then some questions. And feel free as I'm going through, if you have any questions to ask them, don't necessarily wait till the end. I'm happy to answer any questions that you'll have. So the next slide, our objective of every audit is to issue an opinion, and we're happy to present that we had an unmodified opinion on the financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2021, which is the highest level of assurance that we can provide. These next slides are going to go into a little bit more detail of kind of that audit process that we go through. So you can go to the next slide if you would like. So required communication, professional and regulatory standards require that we communicate certain matters with you. The first part is audit planning process. So every year we go through an audit planning process, which involves talking with management as well as members of the board to get an understanding of how the year went for the district, anything that's unique for the district, just kind of to assess our risks, how we plan to address those risks, and certain other things. Materiality and planning executing audit. So in every audit we apply a concept of materiality, which is the maximum aggregate amount of the statements that if they were identified and not corrected would cause us to modify our opinion. Basically, we look at stuff on a sample basis. We wouldn't have time to look at everything, so that's why we have to apply materiality to our procedures. Our responsibility and professional standards, as I mentioned previously, is to issue an opinion, which we talked about, and we always like to remind you that the financial statements is the responsibility of management and the board. Significant accounting policies will be in note 1 of the financial statements. One thing I did want to point out here is you guys adopted a new standard this year, GASB 84. It relates to fiduciary activities, and the big impact of that for you was the student activity funds historically had been reported as a fiduciary fund, and they are now included as a special revenue fund. That was new for this year. That's basically the thought behind it is you guys have an administrative control over it. So if you guys talking about these overnight field trips and stuff like that, it's student council, for example, if they wanted to go buy some alcohol or something, like there's a administrator to kind of dictate that those funds can't be used on that or something like that. So that's kind of the thought behind it is you do have that administrative control. So it's now in your special revenue fund instead of a fiduciary activity. Next slide. Management judgments and accounting estimates. So in every set of financial statements that you look at, there's going to be estimates. We didn't find anything unreasonable with those estimates. The main significant estimates that you guys have in your financial statements relate to uncollectible property tax receivables, useful lives and capital assets, and then your pension and OPEB liabilities and the various things that go along with those, but most of those are dictated by PIBA. Financial statement disclosures appear to be neutral, consistent, and clear. Those supplement the financial statements, so they give it a little bit more color on the numbers that you're looking at in the financial statements. Uncorrected and corrected misstatements. There were no uncorrected misstatements, so any misstatements that we identified were corrected in the financial statements. A listing of any adjustments that were corrected is in Appendix A. You guys should have 2 different reports. It's the one that has the colorful front. I forgot to mention that's kind of the report that I'm going over right now, and then we can go over financials. But it's in Appendix A of that. It'll list all the different adjustments in there. Management representations. So management represents various different things to us. We have a copy of that management letter that they signed in the back. It's Appendix B in that report that you have. Disagreements with management, happy to report that we had none. If we did have any, we'd be required to communicate those to you. Same with any significant issues discussed with management. And then the last item on here, internal control related matters. These are in Appendix B at the end, but then they're also in the back of the financial statement report. So we did have 2 significant deficiencies that were required to communicate to you. So the first one relates to payments to counties reconciliation. Basically, there were discrepancies between the amounts in the books and what was on, it's called the payments to counties report. It's issued showing what payments were made to the counties, and it's reconciled every year. There was some back and forth on trying to get that reconciled. Ultimately, it did get reconciled, but there's a lot of back and forth on that. And then the second one relates to bank reconciliations. has to do with some timing of cash payments being shown on the bank reconciliation a little bit differently, and then avoided check not being removed out of the system. So those are just to bring to your attention. All of the adjustments related to these were made, so your ending financial statements do reflect all of these numbers adjusted for those. Next slide. So that's kind of the board report packet that you guys have. I'm going to go over the financial statements. I'm going to kind of breeze through these since I know it's 6.5, 7 months old at this point, but still like to go over some of the financial highlights for you. So your total fund balance increased $2.5 million to $7.8 million at the end of 6/30/21, which represents about 17% of your fiscal year 21 expenditures, which equates to approximately 2 months worth of expenditures sitting in fund balance. The state requires a minimum fund balance of 8.33%, which is the equivalent of 1 month. But the GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association, actually recommends 2 months, so you guys are right in that recommendation. So a very healthy, strong fund balance. I know some years hasn't been that way, so great job to finance team for getting a good fund balance. The next slide. So revenues in your governmental funds, there's revenues about $77 million, increased just shy of $4 million or 5% compared to the prior year. Primary reasons is an increase in property taxes and federal grant revenue. I did want to point out in this graph, and I know it's kind of small, but the 2021 numbers do include about $6.1 million in federal money and $1.1 million in state money related to COVID-19 funding you guys received, and that number may seem smaller than what you've heard you were awarded. That's just what you spent on that award in the current year. So there's more money out there, it's just what you spent in fiscal year 21, and then we're reimbursed under those programs. So Special Projects Fund, this includes Food Service Fund as usual, relates to federal and state grants and programs. There's about $16 million expended in fiscal year 21 for about 50 programs. Just point out that the district is constrained by federal and state program requirements for these funds. And as I mentioned earlier, it includes your student activity funds for fiscal year 21 due to that new accounting standard. EIA funds had about $4.5 million in equal expenditures and revenues, and any unspent funds for these must be either returned or carried over to next year depending on what the funding allows. Next slide. Just to go over a few other highlights, outstanding debt at the end of the year was $72.6 million, which decreased about $4.3 million from the prior year due to principal payments made on your outstanding debt. Legal debt margin was $8.3 million at the end of 21, and then your capital expenditures decreased about $5 million from the previous year as you guys finished this lovely building in fiscal year 20, and there weren't any significant capital project going on during fiscal year 21. Accounting matters, so just wanted to point out a couple things. GASB 87 is the new lease standard that will be applicable for this fiscal year. Basically, it's taking any lease that's out there that's more than a year and putting it on your balance sheet. There won't be any impact to your day-to-day accounting, so you're still going to record all that stuff as you would if it could be a government-wide adjustment. And so the way I kind of like to think about it is you're putting a right-of-use asset on there, which is kind of like a capital asset, and then you're putting a lease liability on there, which is kind of like debt, if you want to think of it in those terms, as to how you would show through on the government-wide financial statements. COVID-19 funding, I mentioned these earlier, so the $6.1 million in federal funding, we tested that as a major program under the Single Audit Act, and then $1.1 million in state funding related to coronavirus relief funds were tested based on certain procedures in the state audit guide that were required to test. So both of those were subject to testing procedures by us, and we did not have any findings on those. The next slide. So just a couple more things. Compliance reporting. In addition to the financial statements, we also issued 2 more opinions. The first one is required under government auditing standards, and it's based on our test of the district's internal control and compliance with laws and regulations, but it's not an opinion on the district's internal control. And the second opinion is over controls and compliance over federal award expenditures, and that's required by the Single Audit Act. And I mentioned earlier, ESSER is one of those programs that we tested as a major program, and then IDEA was the other one that we tested this year. The way that it works out with school districts, we typically will kind of rotate these about every 3 years. But ESSER, as it was a new program, we tested that as well. No findings identified, and low risk oddities, so that basically just means that we didn't have to test as many expenditures. It's in the single audit burdens out there. Both opinions were also unmodified, so unmodified opinions on all three of our opinions. And then the last slide, just in summary, is an unmodified opinion on the financial statements from Elliott Davis and a sound financial condition as of June 30th, 2021. And I think there's another slide on here with just my contact information. Tim's contact information is on here as well. He's the shareholder on the engagement. He wasn't able to make it tonight. But if you guys have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to either of us. But I'm also happy to answer any questions that you guys may have at this time.
Any questions? For Ms. Davis? Mr. Bowman?
Yes, sir, I do have a couple of things that I'd like for you to clarify, please. In the beginning, one second, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
In the beginning, you stated that on the slide that said required communications, you said you spoke with our finance office personnel as well as a board member.
Yes.
Who was the board member
I
that you
believe
spoke
we spoke
to?
with the board chair.
You spoke with Ms. Whitkin.
I believe so. I was not involved. I was out on leave during that time, so I'm not 100% sure who to talk to, but typically our inquiries are done with the board chair.
Ms. Whitkin, do you remember inquiries about our financial audit with Elliott and Davis?
I'm sorry, I heard the question, Mr. Mervin, just that it was directed to me, but not specific. Can you repeat it?
Do you remember having any conversations with Elliott and Davis relative to our financial audit?
Do I remember? Yes, they're not specific and very general. Just kind of, did I have any questions or concerns? Any specific areas that I felt needed any attention? So it's pretty much right here.
Do you remember around about when that conversation occurred?
I'm sorry, Mr. Whitman, I don't specifically recollect. I probably during the summer. That seems to correlate, Ms. Barrett or Ms. Davis.
Yeah, so typically we do most of our planning procedures in like late spring, early summer. So it's probably like the May, June, July timeframe if I had to guess. So we do that as part of our planning procedures is when we do those inquiries. And then we also mention whenever we do those that if anything comes up that, feel free to reach out. We won't have enough communication the entire time kind of thing. But yeah, it probably took place somewhere between May and July if I had to guess.
When I'm very interested in this process because we've had as a board, we've had a lot of discussion about our auditing practices as well as different accounts within our district. I don't know if any board members had any conversation with Ms. Whitkin that she could relay to the auditing firm relative to our audit. Can any board member recall those conversations?
For the current year?
Yes, sir.
No, I just remember that as board chair, I was contacted by the same company and the same conversations, general questions that came about, if there anything that I felt was necessary, do we understand it? But as far as the direct communication with this current board chair, no, sir.
And I have to, I remember speaking, Mr. Bowman, with Mr. Grow. It was a very brief conversation. It was, like I said, I thought it was around the summer. We were midst of a superintendent search and lots of different things going on. So it was very brief and casual.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Whitkin. One more point. The adoption of GASB 84, you said that particular piece of regulation allowed us to, or we moved our special projects, no, not special projects, or what was our special fund? I'm sorry?
Student activity funds.
Student activity funds to our special projects funds.
Yes.
Now, if I'm reading this correctly by that slide you gave us, we moved a total of $351,000.
That $351,000 represents the ending balance at June 30th, 2020. They're related to student activity funds, so it wasn't called fund balance under when it was a fiduciary activity, but it's basically the same thing. So that restatement there is basically putting that $351,000 that was there at the ending of June 30th, 2020 and putting it into the special revenue fund as if it was there at the beginning of the year, because it was adopted effective July 1st, 2020. And then all the activity related to student activity fund during 2021 is included. There should be a column if you're in your financial statements in the back. I think it's like the B schedules, like it usually has your Title I column, your IDEA column. There should be a column now that's new this year with your 700 funds, which is the student activity funds. So the accounting for them hasn't changed at all. It's just a financial statement presentation piece.
Right. So just to make sure that I'm usually the slow one with the auditing.
Okay.
So I try to make sure that I understand. The $351,000 that was restated in the special projects fund,
Yes.
that was an end of year balance for our student activity funds?
From the previous year. Yes.
Previous year was the end of 2020.
Correct.
Which would have been June 30th, 2020.
Correct.
Right, so June 30th, 2020, all of our student activity funds had a total amount of $351,000 in it.
Sitting as essentially a fund balance. It would have been shown as due to student organizations under the old standard, but yes.
Did you all audit those funds?
Yes, they would have been subject to our auditing procedures in fiscal year 20, and then they were subject to our auditing procedures this year as well, just within the special revenue fund as opposed to a fiduciary activity.
And where's the result of that, the auditing of those funds?
That's included within our audit.
It is?
Yes.
So y'all didn't separate them to give us a report on those specific funds?
Correct. So as part of the audit, we give an opinion on each major fund and then any non-major funds in the aggregate. So this encompasses all of those funds.
And I don't know if this question would be better for you to answer, probably better for Ramona to answer. Ramona, where would I find a list of all of our student activity funds, or what used to be our student activity funds?
All of our student activity funds are in our 700 accounts, but if you all would like me to give you a copy of it, I can do that.
It's not included as a part of our monthly
No.
financial statements?
No special revenue funds are included as a monthly, but you all would like
Is
them.
that in spirit? I can't hear.
I'm sorry, Ms. Wickens. Oh, you couldn't hear what Ramona was saying, yeah.
Yeah.
Ms. Bear, before you get started, hold on just a second.
Thank you.
Just a point of clarification for the board members. Because of the phones that are up here that I'm trying to run the microphone feed through, I have to turn these off for y'all to speak, and then I have to turn those dies off for this to activate. Otherwise, the feedback will build up and it will become, that's that noise. So I'm,
get that fixed. We'll be able to get that fixed.
yeah, so I apologize for that. So just please bear with me.
We'll get it fixed, I promise.
We'll change the microphone system, which we need to do anyway.
Go ahead, Ramona.
I'm sorry, as I was saying, we do not normally give a part of the financials for the board or the people activity funds, but if that's something that you'd like to include in your report, I can definitely do that.
I don't know if it needs to be included and of course it is the will of the board, of course, but I don't know if it needs to be included in our monthly reports. But I do think, and I think this is probably a topic of discussion formally, about the auditing of student activity funds, or which would now be special projects funds. One last question and I'll be done. Student activity funds is now special project funds. what were those student activity funds merged with? Were there other funding pots that made, that merged to make that special projects fund, or we just changed the name of it?
The student activity fund is still the pupil activity fund. It just been scheduled. It just have different name wording on the financial statements. It's still the same fund, it's still handled the same way, but it's not, only way it have to be presented on the financial statement is just different.
Okay.
But everything else is still fine, it's still the same way, no difference.
All right, that's it.
Thank you. Any additional questions for Ms. Davis? Anyone on the phone line has a question?
No, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Ms. Davis, please. Mr. Murdoch?
No, thanks.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Ms. Davis. We certainly. We need action on this. Okay, can we get a motion to the effect that
We just need to accept the audit report, right? I make a motion that we accept the audit report.
Second.
properly moved and second that we accept the audit report? All in favor, let it be known by the usual sign. Those on the line, Mr. Murdoch?
Yes.
Mrs. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Whitkin?
Whitkin, yes.
Okay, here. It's unanimous. Thank you. Job well done.
Thank you.
At this time, we're going to have our superintendent's operational update, COVID-19 update numbers, recommendations for COVID-19 protocol, calendar survey update, salary study update, safety update, and ESSA update. Quite a few updates.
Well, that sounds like a lot. But I promise you, I'm not going to be long. Some of those updates are word.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good evening again. So you should have received the presentation already. Do you have it? You should have it. Okay. So I always begin with my focus on school improvement, on district school improvement, to outline just a few things that I've been doing. I've held pre-conference meetings with our cabinet members to set their goals and objectives that align to my goals and objectives for the district. I've also met with the Colleton County Memorial Library Board for Colleton County Community Read Project. We have several teachers involved in that book selection process. We'll be having a large community read that will culminate around the first week in April. So we're excited to have that partnership. All of the children in grades K through 12 will receive their very personal, their own copy of the book. And we're inviting the community to join in and read with us. All of the schools, public, private, homeschool, First Steps, Head Start, Christian, all of the schools are involved, prep everyone. So we're excited for that partnership. Restructuring and planning meetings have taken place with curriculum instruction, special services, and technology. School visits and coaching walkthroughs continue, so I can monitor what's happening in the schools within the academics. Data meetings with school-based administration teams for the mid-year data review, which I will show you a little bit later on today. And principal leadership development continues to focus on mid-year data review and second semester planning. I've also met with the South Carolina Office of School Transformation to plan for the upcoming year, and I focus on the school renewal plans. So I want you to know that I continue to be very focused on school improvement and transformation of our school district so that I can make sure that our schools continue to progress. Some points to consider. I am an advocate for making sure that our schools are innovative and they have opportunities for success. So, of course, we have an Arts Now grant that was provided to us. The professional development has begun for those schools. Our principals engaged last week, principals from Forest Hills, Cottageville, as well as Northside. They all engaged in that kickoff professional development in Charleston, and they're really excited about that opportunity to present for our students and teachers. Excited that we're awarded a partnership grant with the South Carolina Commission on Higher Education. and the Center of Excellence with Clemson University as the lead for this. Our principals will enter the Center for Creative Leadership, Assistance, and Service Support so that they get some wonderful opportunities for creative leadership design for our principals, assistant principals, and our instructional coaches. We're excited for the opportunity to partner with Clemson University and that Office of Leadership there. It's going to be great for our principals, assistant principals, and instructional assistants. Had the opportunity to work with the Institute of Hope, which is very near and dear to all of us in our school district. The community partnership for after-school grant application. Heard some preliminary information from them today. They'll be making those final announcements on next week for that grant, but we partnered with them, with the Institute of Hope. Dr. Crawford is here this evening, as she always is, supporting us. Hope Enriching Lifelong Learning, it's called HELP, and that partnership is for Bells, Hendersonville, Colleton County High Middle School. It's a K-12 focus for spring and summer for after school, so we're excited. We're keeping our fingers crossed, but I wanted you to know that that is in the works. We'll continue our work on the 6th grade academy. Regardless of how that turns out, we will continue our focus on that 6th grade academy with your support and our modified calendar. So while those dates haven't been set, I wanted to keep that in close, upfront and close and personal with you. We'll have an informational session and public output. We still will have those in Collegeville, Bells, Hendersonville, the town of Walterboro, and we'll have an informational session and questions will be provided for that format. Our salary update is in progress. They have communicated with and interviewed all department heads one-on-one in a 45-minute to an hour interview or longer. And they have interviewed me for a couple hours. And then they reviewed all of our salary scales currently and all pertaining documents that have to do with salary, for classified as well as certified. And they're in the process of their analysis, and they will report that by the end of the month. And hopefully that schedule for the report is in February if they are still on schedule. So I just wanted to give you a little update to where that is. A very brief report from the Office of Safety and Security from Mr. McNeely and Ms. McDonald. Ms. McDonald is here supporting us this evening. And our metal detectors have been placed in the high and middle school. We're excited about that. You gave approval for us to purchase those. The administrative teams are working to organize the faculty to prepare a full implementation in return from our COVID virtual session. But those are in place. Dad's on duty training was scheduled, but we had to put that on hold due to the COVID closure. We have about 7 male volunteers who are ready, who have already had their background checks, who are ready to go, correct, Ms. McDonald, who are ready to go. And we have about 35 packets that have been picked up and then the process are waiting for those to be returned. So we continue to move forward with our Dad's on duty process. I'd like to present our modified calendar results. As you know, that closed on Sunday evening. And I have those results at this time to share with you and the community. So I draw your attention to the board. The questions were few because we only needed to ask about 4 or 5 questions. Can everyone hear me? Okay. So we had them to please indicate your role with CCSD and choose all that apply. We had 474 responses. When I pulled the data, this is what I found. Employees, we had 168 employees to respond. Students, we had 71 to respond. Parents or guardian, we had 253 to respond. And external stakeholders, we had 12 to respond. 474 responses that were provided to our survey. I would like for you to know that we have about 5,000 students. We have about 900 employees. So that gives you an idea of our return there. So the results indicate the question was, if the district were to adopt a modified calendar, which sample calendar would you prefer for the 2022-23 school year? 474 responses. Sample 1, I have the 2 calendars in my possession this evening, and these are the correct calendars, by the way. Sample 1 and then sample 2. So sample 1 calendar is in the blue, 64.6%, and sample 2 is in the red, 35.4%. So I'll explain the 2. Sample 1 has the date where students begin. First day of school would be August 1st. That's a sample 1 that got the majority vote, 64.5%, or 6%, I'm sorry. And then sample 2 received the 35.4, and that has the beginning date of school for the students as July 21st. Okay? 474 responses. I went through every single response, good, bad, or indifferent. I summarized the responses. I have non-favorable comments and I have favorable comments. So the summary includes non-favorable comments. I'll identify those first. Child care issues. Parents were very concerned that having the modified calendar, regardless of which one it was, would provide daycare issues or child care issues for them during the break. Loss of the summer break. They felt as though the summer break was taken away. And several comments that it was unethical to cut the summer work for employees. And then I made an error here, I apologize. Not enough downtime for teachers. Cut out summer camps and trips for children, for students. And there were several comments that it was not good for the Eddiesville Beach community because they have some big event going on down there. That was several comments in that room. The favorable comments were mental breaks for teachers, employees, and students, time for students to catch up at the end of each 9 weeks, parents can take vacations all year long during the 2-week break, and the long Christmas break that was there. So I summarized those remarks. There were many, but that's the summary of what was included because several of them were the same. Okay? I'll keep going unless you want to stop now and ask questions. I can keep going at this time. Okay?
Question?
Yes, sir. Okay, what will we do next now that we have these results?
Now that we have the results, we will now go back out for another survey between the traditional calendar and the modified calendar that received the majority votes. And we will also have some town hall meetings. If COVID doesn't subside, we'll have those virtually. If COVID subsides, we'll have those in person. So we can entertain some public comment.
There were so few staff members that participated in our survey, and that is kind of crazy. I hope that they will give us their input as we consider this moving forward.
Okay, we'll put it out there again.
Yes, I definitely agree with what Ms. Whitkin just said. Each of us have our own personal opinions about the modified calendar. I'm sure all of us that heard from somebody within their constituency about the modified calendar. I personally have favorable ideas about the modified calendar. I see the academic benefits, for our students, which, of course, that's what our purpose is. This board's purpose is to govern this district in such a way that will be beneficial to, number one, the academic progress of students. That is our number one purpose, educating students. So to really piggyback on what Ms. Whitkin just said, it would be great for us to hear more or have more input from our staff members, especially our principals and our teachers, to talk about our modified calendar as it relates to the academic progress of students. Now, everybody have their own personal opinions about, how they feel about our school year personally. And that's fine. I don't critique or look down on anybody for having that, but we need to remain cognizant of what our purpose is for our school system. And whatever calendar is going to benefit our students the most academically, that's the way that William Bowman is going to support. Now, from what I've heard so far, Dr. Cave, in the initial production of this calendar to the board, we talked about the breaks in between 9 weeks, we being able to assist or offer services to students that might be behind academically. I think the public needs to know that. I think the public needs to understand about what a lot of people have probably already heard about, learning loss. The public needs to understand that. And we need to, like Ms. Whitkin said, have our staff members talk about the benefits, the pros and the cons of this modified calendar as it relates to academic progress. And hopefully we'll be able to do that before the next survey comes out. I don't know when you plan on doing that.
I have not planned those meetings yet, but I can plan those. What I have planned is to work with our teacher advisory group, which is our teachers of the year from each one of our schools, so that they have the opportunity to provide some input. I reached out to our current teacher of the year who supervises that group or who facilitates that group, and I am going to do a survey with them about their input with various questions about the modified calendar. But yes, we can set up a time so that we can seek input from the employees. What I can do, and just preliminarily looking at the data, most of the employees are in favor of the modified calendar. Most of the parents are not in favor of the modified calendar. But the data comes in an Excel spreadsheet, and we can break it down because we know individually all of the staff members who responded, and we can tell whether it was a staff member who responded and whether they gave a favorable or non-favorable. So I can break that data down.
Are we going to before, and again, I don't know when you plan on launching the survey for the traditional calendar versus the modified calendar, but are we going to, I guess my real question is, I think there should be, it's not really a question now that I think about it, I think there should be a presentation done to the board that really accentuates the benefits of a modified calendar as it relates to academic progress. I think that should happen. I don't know if we have time to do that or not. I don't know when you're planning on launching that survey, but I think the public really needs to know what the academic benefits of a modified calendar is. I don't know if you were planning on having that done publicly or not.
We did something similar like that already, but we can do it again. We can put it in form of a PowerPoint. Yes, we have the FAQs, which outlines the benefits.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And that's also published online with the calendar, so that when the parents get the calendar, they also get the FAQ, so they know the benefits. But I can go into a lot more detail with data, and I can present that information. Sometimes it gets a little too convoluted when you provide a little too much information, but I can do that. I'll make sure that I do that. We'll just need to meet as a team to determine when the best time is to provide that presentation to the board or to the public, or do you want both? Because the town hall meetings will be doing it as the public.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
But to the board, I can do it in a special call meeting if I need to do it before next board meeting.
No, I think my my rationale is, number one, we need to make sure that the advantages of this modified calendar is placed before the public. Because I don't want people in the public to think that it's just a knee-jerk decision that we're making, as it relates to our school calendar. There are benefits to what we're doing or what's being presented to us. And those benefits affect our student achievement. Those benefits, and I think that should be put out there. Now, if you had plans to do that at town hall meetings, that's fine. That's great. But
At town hall meetings, I had planned to show the number of districts in the state that are considering the calendar, the number of districts, because the data is there, the number of districts nationwide that are on this type of calendar. The data is also there to show the results of the districts that are nationwide that have done this type of calendar and the academic success, as well as the academic deficiency when the calendar is not supported by parents. Yes.
Board, what you said about the employees was in favor of it because they're the ones in the trenches. They're the ones who really are there. So if we can get their support, their input, I think that's going to be a key component.
And that's a preliminary look at the data, but we can go more in depth in the data and be able to show you that comparison. Most definitely. I want to make sure that the public understands the benefit.
I want to just kind of temper a little bit of the statement that was made. The benefits are proposed benefits. Until we actually institute it or bring it forward, we don't know what the benefit is or not. And I'll say for my term on the board, there are some decisions that we've made with lots of information given to us that did not turn out like we had hoped. What the district, I believe, is proposing is the fact of choice, that we can turn around and find a way to expand upon the education of our students to help them in a different way. Currently right now, traditional learning is not traditional learning anymore because of COVID and the virtual and everything else that's happening. But our job as a board, as well as the superintendent and the staff that she works with day in and day out currently, is to find ways to make it easier to challenge our students to help them move forward. My biggest concern on the whole survey is there's 500 responses. In a community that I guarantee you every single one of us get more than one complaint religiously after a meeting about why didn't we discuss this, why wasn't that proposed, why would you vote that way. We need our community involved. Dr. Cave has said it out there. She's put it out there once. She's willing to put out a second one. We need the input. Because we're at work for the will of the people, but we're also working for, first and foremost, as Mr. Bowman said, and we all agree, the education of that student from kindergarten all the way through high school.
And we'll continue to put it out there. We put it on Facebook. We put it on Facebook and we put it on Twitter. We put it on our website. We send it home by $1. We send it home by email. So we'll continue to make sure that it's out there for the public.
Dr. Keith, I have a question. When do we have to submit, if our district decides to move forward with the modified calendar, I know we have to have state approval. When do we have to submit that? And I have another question, I'll just tag on to it, and that is the child care issues. That's a pretty top concern from those that have mentioned any. And so is there any way that the district can work to help and aid parents with child care at a reduced cost?
We are looking into child care, and we are planning to submit the voucher program for child care. That was turned down in the past, but we are submitting that voucher proposal so that we can become a voucher site for parents for child care. We will open the 2-week time for intercession or for learning time so that parents will have the opportunity to send your children. Every child will have the opportunity to come because we will also have children who are not meeting standard who are required to come, but then there will be enrichment activities that parents can take the opportunity to engage their children in as well. So there will be something for everyone to engage in, but we will look at the opportunity to have childcare services as well.
And what does that state approval is?
Excuse me, state approval is needed by March.
Thank you. Just when you were talking, I also thought, you know, our staff are also going to be employed during that time too, so that's a benefit. In Mr. Bowman's presentation, I think that's a good point to present to.
Yes. Staff will have the opportunity to make some additional pay.
Thank you.
Yeah, one last thing, 15 seconds. I've been reading some of the comments also, just like everybody else. The school year is not going to be any longer for anybody. It's still going to be 180 days for students, 190 days for employees. Am I right or wrong?
You are correct.
So nobody's going to have to work. I thought that was kind of funny to read how some people thought that the school year was going to be longer for our employees. It's not going to be a longer school year. We're just breaking them down into 9 weeks and 2.5 or 2 weeks.
You're correct. It won't be any longer. Okay?
Okay,
All right. I'll continue.
okay.
So with our COVID update, as of today, hot off the press, student positives, we have 99. Cumulative, 404. Student quarantine, 438. Cumulative, this is since January 1, since we came back from school, since we came back.
Since January 1?
2022?
Yes, sir.
The cumulative number. Yep.
Yes, sir. Staff positives, 100. Cumulative, 139. Quarantine, 28. Cumulative, 73. So in quarantine now, with students, 1,950. And student positives, 404. This is, I want you to look at how it looks. This is week 1, that's the weekly numbers there. This is the cumulative since we've come back. Okay? All right. So I want you to look at week 1 here. We have 41 in quarantine. This was this week, 110 to 118. That was at Spain. 41, 279. Middle, 29 and 90. High, 29 and 69. And the district, 8 and 0. Okay. So,
Wait a minute.
we have a lot of
Cumulative, so since January, since we started.
I'll double check to make sure my numbers are correct. I can get Nurse Daniel on the phone to make sure, but I'm almost positive I'm correct. I could be an error. I'll admit I could have an error.
Since we started January of this year, we have almost 2,000 students in quarantine.
It could be
Okay,
just let me double check. to make
that's
sure.
almost half of our student population.
Let me just double check. to
Yes,
make
ma'am.
sure. I'll admit an error. But
That's okay.
I'll allow them not to be here.
Yes, ma'am, I understand. We understand. Absolutely.
Mr. Darrell, can you try to get that? I'm almost positive that's correct, because when we ended last week, we had 800 and some children in quarantine. So I'm almost positive that is correct number, unless that's a typographical error.
Yeah, that was,
When we
That would
ended last week, we were about almost 900 children. We're 880 some children quarantined.
That would be incredible to have 139, 140 staff, and that's the staff members that we know of, right? These are numbers that we know of, that was reported to us, right?
As soon as she calls back, I'll verify that number.
Yes, ma'am.
But I'm almost positive.
Yes, ma'am. You can move on.
Okay.
So I want to go on with the virtual learning session, remote work requirements. We transitioned to our virtual learning session January 13th through the 19th. Our expected return is January 20th, depending on the widespread of the virus. Transition students, is that correct?
It's for the school year.
It's for the school year, okay. So I offer my apology, that's for the school year. Okay. Would you ask her how many in quarantine today?
Dr. King would like to know how many more quarantines did you get for today?
So I offer my apology because I thought it was for the whole year.
Okay, so for the week of, you have weekly numbers of 438. Is that for just this 1 week for quarantine students is 438?
That's just this week.
Up to today, yes. She didn't add in today, but it's up to today, 438 students.
All right. And
Okay.
the cumulatives on the other side.
The
So my
cumulatives
error.
on the other side, yes.
My error, okay, thank you.
All right, thanks to you.
I apologize, my error.
Okay, fine.
So today, I'll go back. So I apologize for my error. Positive cases, we have 99 up to today for students, and student in quarantine is 438. She did not add those in. And then staff positive is 100, and staff quarantine is 28. So what you have to do is you have to add the positives and the quarantine together. Because the positive staff cannot be in school, so they have to be in quarantine. Does that make sense? So she didn't provide the totals there. So the 128 has to be added together for the quarantine. That's why you have the quarantine number of staff. Because the positives and the quarantine staff have to be added. She didn't add those. And the positives and the quarantine is 438 for students. So I apologize for not error for the students. Does that make sense now? So continue with our virtual learning session, our remote work requirements. Students transition to virtual learning January 13th through the 19th. We had 20, and our expected return is on Thursday. That's depending on the virus spread. We'll look at the numbers again tomorrow. Students transition to remote work on January, the staff transition to remote work on January 18th. I made a decision that the staff would also transition home, so they're not currently in the building, only designated staff is in the building. Essential staff is working on site. We provided a guidance document to the staff for the remote work guidelines, and the school site, we have one administrative and one support staff, and then the district office, we have limited staff. They are determined by the supervisor. You can remove that one. I should have taken that one out. You can take that one. Just keep that. I should have taken that. Go back. One more. Right. Thank you. So I'd like to offer you some recommendations. We have received several calls from parents as well as from staff about changing our protocols. Since all of the districts around us, every district around us has transitioned to the new CDC guidelines. And the new CDC guidelines say that you can have your staff to return to the work environment if they're not positive and they are not having any symptoms within 5 days. So I'd like to be able to offer that recommendation for us to transition to the CDC guidelines for our staff and students. Worked with Attorney Duffy to make sure that we had this as appropriately said as possible. So I'll offer you the new guidelines based upon what has been just released. They released a new update on
Saturday,
was it Saturday?
15th.
The 15th, yes. So a new release came out. We had already had one, and we had to go in and make some additional changes. Just as a point of information, the changes are made constantly. So when you make one change and you get your policy or you get your recommendations made, they'll come out with another one overnight. So you have to go back in and make another adjustment.
Yeah, the last change, just so y'all can understand, I think it was, we were working on January 9th version, and then January 15th they changed it. So you're talking 6 days, they changed the criteria.
So I'm recommending that the 5-day quarantine begins after the last known close contact of the COVID-19 positive individual. The student staff member may return on day 6 if they remain asymptomatic and a negative antigen or PCR test. That's the longer test that takes about 48 hours to come back. Test taken no earlier than day 5. And then they also have proof of a negative test must be turned into the school nurse before returning to campus. An at-home test may be used to meet that test requirement, providing an attestation form from the home testing is done. It must be completed and turned into the school nurse. Students and staff must continue to wear their masks properly during the school day, except for eating and drinking. So that's the guidelines coming from CDC, so that is our proposal. Now, there are some exceptions to that quarantine, and those exceptions are staff or students who meet the following criteria not showing any signs of COVID will not have to quarantine, and they voluntarily choose to provide documentation of if they're maximally or fully vaccinated to eliminate the quarantine. And maximally vaccinated is with the booster. And then fully vaccinated is with the 2 shots. And then have tested positive on PCR in the last 90 days and do not have symptoms of a close contact. And they must have proof of the positive test. And then students and staff must continue to wear the mask, except for eating. And then testing of the vaccinated close contacts living in a household with someone in isolation who cannot be separated should occur 5 days after the end of the isolation. We're also trying to work so that we have testing going on at each of our sites. So in case parents do not have the opportunity to be able to get a test, we're trying to work out with the company that offers testing for our children to be able to test here at the school as well, and with the attestation form, that with the consent form as well. Because CDC, DHEC provides a parental consent form for testing as well, and parents sign for them to be tested on site. Several school districts test their children on a daily basis if they have parental consent. That's my recommendation for our COVID protocols moving forward. I'd like to begin this immediately because it would allow staff to be able to return to school safe if they're not having any symptoms. Right now we do 10, and it would also allow students to be able to return as well, because if the state does not extend, or if our numbers do not allow for us to extend it to stay in virtual, we are coming back to school.
Anyone have any questions? Any questions or concerns?
Yes,
Mr. Mabry?
Mr. Jenkins, just one, here it says student, staff continue to wear masks properly at all times during the school day with the exception of eating and drinking. This says nothing about outdoor activity. And are there So that's being outdoors there, as in, some sort of outdoor activity, being outside, they do not have to wear the mask, correct?
Yeah, they don't have.
Okay, it wouldn't state, I just want.
We'll still stick with that same thing for outdoors, right? Yes, sir.
Question. Someone else have a question on the line?
May I ask a question?
Sure, by all means.
Thank you. I just want to ask Dr. Kate, I had a parent ask, are we definitely going back on Thursday? And he said that tomorrow information would be reviewed. Will there be a confirmation robocall about school on Thursday?
Yes, ma'am, we're going to look at our numbers tomorrow. We'll look at our numbers tomorrow. We had several positives today, and we have additional students in quarantine today, and we have 21 staff that tested positive today. So I cannot promise you at this time, Board Member Whitkin, that we're going back on Thursday with 21 staff members testing positive today. I have to talk with the State Department, and I'll be doing that tomorrow.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then the information, the slides that have the quarantine information on it, will that be sent to parents and posted on the website?
She was muffled a little bit. Sean, I didn't hear what she wanted sent to. She said sent something to parents.
The new quarantine standards, you wanted to know, correct me if I'm wrong this weekend, but you were asking if the information about the new quarantine protocols would be going out through robocalls and on the website, et cetera?
Yes. Thank you, Tom.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will go out, and Nurse Dangle and I also will do a video as well. We'll make sure that it goes out several ways.
Thank you, Dr. Kate.
Okay, any other questions, concerns, comments? No one has a question?
Yes, that's
Ms. Simmons does.
Yes. I would like to know how soon on tomorrow will parents be notified if they will continue virtual?
I'm going to try to have it done by noon.
Thank you.
Concerns? Dr. Kate, you wanted that information in the form of a motion?
I do. I would like your support of the recommendations moving forward. I think it's really important for the board to support recommendations from me in terms of protocols. Yes.
Okay. Can we get a motion to that effect?
I make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the superintendent to move to the new COVID-19 protocols.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded that we accept the recommendations to transfer to the new CDC guidelines. All in favor, let it be known by the usual sign. Online, Mr. Murdoch.
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons.
Yes.
Whitkins.
Whitkin, yes.
Okay, here, so it is unanimous that we accept. Ayes have it, so we're moving forward. This has been approved.
Thank you so much.
Representative, may I say something?
By all means, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to say I know the decision to move to virtual was not an easy one, and it was carefully considered. Also, the decision to allow for staff to stay at home and work remotely, it was not an easy one, but I think it was the best decision for our district. So, Dr. Kay, thank you, and thank you to all those that are keeping our kids at home but still learning. We appreciate it.
Thank you so very much. I encourage the parents to continue to have the children wear their masks when and if we do come back, get COVID tested. And I don't even know if I can say this, but I'm going to take a chance at it. You can order your COVID tests. They put out the link today, so it's public knowledge. 4 tests can come to your house. Order them.
Thank you. My wife ordered hers today. At this time, Mr. Duffy, do we policy items? Mr. Murdoch is not here.
Yes, sir. 8.01 and 8.02 relate to policies GCCR and GDCR. which were policies y'all adopted on an emergency basis about a week or so ago, maybe 10 days ago now. There was some confusing language in the policy in the first paragraph of the section under eligibility that we needed to take out and clarify that the policy states that the eligible employees are entitled to 5 total work days of the COVID leave regardless of episodes, because we have people coming in and out for varying different time periods. It's 5 total work days for eligible employees regardless of the number of episodes. I think the confusing language before talked about per event, but it's regardless, but it's 5 total days. So we're asking that you basically reconsider these 2 policies as rewritten to clarify the language in that section. That's going to require a motion again to temporarily suspend the 2 reading requirement, and then if that motion is successful, a motion to adopt the newly revised policies.
Motion to that effect.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the need for 2 readings for adoption of policy and administrative rule form as stated in policy BG/BGD in reference to item 8.02.
Second.
Properly moved and second that consideration of the motion to be temporarily suspend the need for 2 readings as pertaining in reference to item 8.02. All in favor, let it be known by the user sign. On the line, Mrs. Whitkin.
Whitkin, yes.
Mrs. Simmons.
Yes.
Mr. Murdock.
Yes.
Okay, it is unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, at this
Motion has
time,
been carried.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt policies GCCR, COVID-19 related leave, professional leave, and GBCR, COVID-19 related leave support staff, the revised policy presented to the board on January 18, 2022, please.
Second.
Properly moved and second that we, this is 8.02, the 2,
Yes.
same motion. Related leave, professional leave, GDCR, related leave, revision, and all in favor, let it be known by the user sign. Opposed, nay. Mr. Murdock?
Yes. Aye.
Ms. Simmons?
Yes.
Ms. Whitkin?
Whitkin, yes.
It is unanimous, the motion is carried. Okay, the balance of these policies, Mr. Duffy?
So, policy 8.0, item 8.03 is a second reading for policy JICJ, possession, use of electronic communication devices in a school. If you recall, back in December, you adopted this policy on an emergency basis so that it could be implemented at the start of this semester, but also gave it first reading at that time so that it could be implemented as a permanent policy going forward. So that policy, what we commonly know as the cell phone policy, but it's more than cell phones actually, is up for second reading tonight. There have been some minor changes since December's reading to change sentence structure and grammar mistakes only that are not substantive changes, but just to make clear as far as sentence structure and grammar goes. So you will need to give second reading to it as presented revised tonight.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the policy JICJ, possession/use of electronic communication devices in school as written and presented to the board on January 18th, 2022, please.
Second.
Properly moving second that we have second reading on policy JICJ, protection to electronic communication devices in school, for the second reading. All in favor, let it be known by the usual sign.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, by all means, question.
Sure. I just want to ask Dr. Kate, I know that this policy was only in effect for a few days before we had to do it virtual. So I wanted to see how the implementation so far has gone in the schools.
We're not having a lot of difficulty with the implementation of the policy. We're having more problems with the dress code policy than we are having with the electronic device policy.
Questions?
Thank you, Dr. Kate. I know they're still working on getting all the agreements signed, and that will come trickling in after virtual.
Yes,
So I appreciate your update.
yeah. They will
Continue, that will be an ongoing process, getting the agreement signed, yes.
Previous question. All in favor, let it be known by the usual sign. Online, Ms. Whitkin,
Whitkin, yes?
Mr. Murdoch,
Yes.
Ms. Simmons, and it is unanimous. The motion is carried. 8.04, Mr. Duffy, first reading.
8.04 is the superintendent's item.
Organizational challenge, okay.
Are there changes to the organization chart?
Yes, ma'am, there are numerous. Did you email them a copy, Ms. Riddell? Yes, so you emailed a copy. There are several changes. I'll go through those with you tonight for the first reading. With the new superintendent, there comes organizational changes. So I'm making my organizational changes. I told you they were coming, so here they go. My executive board will be Assistant Superintendent for Learning Support Services. There will also be an Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. We'll talk about those two positions first. The Assistant Superintendent for Learning Support Services will supervise the Director of Student Support Services. Notice that that is a learning support services. I believe that learning support services provide support to children. The Director of Student Services title will change to Director of Student Support Services. Under that position will be Director of Exceptional Learning. That current title is Director of Students, Director of Special Services. That title changes to Director of Exceptional Learning. And then I'm moving the Director of Athletics under the Director of the Assistant Superintendent for Learning Support Services, moving that from under the Superintendent's office. Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, having that, narrowing the focus of that department so it works on just curriculum and instruction. Director of Teaching and Learning, that'll be a K-12 position. Repurposing that or reclassifying a role there. Coordinator of Assessment and Accountability, making sure I provide enough support to our schools with content specialists. There'll be 6 of those specialists there. I've worked out the funding source, by the way, for all positions. Instructional tech, content coaches, we'll have 2. Right now we have 1 coach that has a challenge providing support to our teachers, K-12. So we're going to do a K-5 and a 6-12 position there. Narrowing the focus for operations, there'll be an executive director for operations. Now, make note that that position can be this. Any of those 3 people under there can be the executive director. So that will eventually be executive director operations, building and grounds, or executive director operations,
student nutrition, executive director operations, student transportation, because any of those can be that position. Kind of reminds you of assistant superintendent of operations and human resource. Does that make sense? Then the chief financial officer, you'll notice moving the director of federal programs under that office because it's all financial. While director of federal programs still has some responsibility for instructional aspects with priority schools, I directly supervise principals. I'll take over that aspect of the leadership part, and we'll continue to monitor that. With all of the monitoring and the compliance and all of the processes that we're going to have to do in terms of keeping account of all of our ESSA funding, that reporting mechanism is done by the chief financial officer. So I want that to be a seamless process, and that's why that office is moving under that department. Then we have the Director of Information Technology. That department is being that whole department is being totally redesigned there. But that position is coming directly under me, so I can provide some direct supervision for the next year, the next couple of years, as long as I am the superintendent for Director of Information Technology. I'm changing the title there, and that department has some redesign. Safety Security Officer has a Safety Security Specialist. Human Resource will come out and be a separate department. Immediate focus is there for Human Resource to work on teacher development, work on grow your own teacher, work on teacher recruitment and retention, work on principal leadership development. So I'm pulling that out. I believe that risk management is a major portion of what we do here, especially with COVID, but risk management is a department that we're lacking in there, and that department needs to fall under human resources. So nursing services will now go under human resources, and that position will change to a coordinator of nursing services, which will handle the risk management piece as well. And then we'll have a communications coordinator. If you'll see all of those positions will be directly under the superintendent, and then you'll also see I will supervise school principals, the director of career and technology. The director of adult education is coming from under curriculum and instruction and coming under me, and then the coordinator for alternative learning. That is the superintendent's organizational chart moving forward. Any questions?
Any questions for Dr. Cable? Comments?
I make a motion that we accept the policy CCA organizational chart for its first reading.
We get a second?
Second.
Properly moved and second that we accept the recommendation for the policy CCA organizational chart. All in favor, let it be known by the usual sign. Online, Mr. Murdoch.
Discussion.
Any call for discussion on the question? I'm sorry.
Discussion. Yeah, second. It's been seconded. It just
We'll have time for questioning, and when we get the count, is there a question?
You have to have discussion during after discussion before the vote.
Give me a discussion.
Yeah.
Any discussion? Any questions or comments? Previous question. All in favor, let it be known by the usual sign. On the line, Mr. Murdoch.
Yes.
Mrs. Simmons.
Yes.
Ms. Whitkin.
Whitkin, yes.
Okay. Unanimous. Motion carried.
Thank you so very much.
Trustee boardroom portrait policy.
So the item 8.05 is a proposed trustee portrait policy, which has been labeled as policy BL, which will be a new policy. That is for first reading tonight. That's based off of a recommendation and draft language prepared by Mr. Bowman. So if y'all have any questions or Mr. Bowman wants to address it, welcome to.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair. May I explain this, Mr. Chair?
Yes, go
Thank you, sir. I think I contacted all of the board members and asked them about this. I think I might have missed Ms. Whitkin. I can't remember if I talked to Sharon about
Yes,
this.
you missed me.
I'm sorry?
I said, yes, you missed me.
I missed you. I'm sorry, Sharon. But I think it's a wonderful move by our board to show a commendation to board members that have served for 28 years as a elected board member for this county by having their portraits displayed in our boardroom where we have our regular board meeting. That's pretty much the simple side of this policy. The only thing that I might amend by the time we do our second reading is the actual size of the image. I think the size of the image needs to be a size that's commendable, but I chose to keep this 30 by 40 inches in there for the portrait size because that is a commendable size. But I think if I do change any language relative to that, it'll say something relative to it must match the same size in the same diameter, so forth and so on, of the previously owned pictures. Right now, board members, as I told you earlier, we have two previously board members that served previously that is in honor of having this commendation applied to them, and that's Mr. P.A. Cornell, who served for I think 32 years, and Mr. Wayne Scheider, who served for 30 years. And board members, if you know anybody else that might meet the standards of having their portraits, displayed in our boardroom, please let me or our superintendent know so we can do the research on it. But I think it's a commendable thing to do because 7 terms as a board member is a long time. It's a long, tenure for public service, and I think it's something that's commendable to have displayed. That was the idea of, behind me having this policy drafted. If there are any questions, from any board member, please let me hear.
I have a question.
Mr. Murdoch.
Do you think that it'd be possible that we might consider a board member making a contribution to awards and may not have 20 or 30 years in that might be up there, but it's going to be limited to 20 to 30 years serving? This question.
So you're asking, can we change the 28-year requirement to have their portraits displayed, Mr. Murdoch?
Well, similar to that. In other words, if you had a board member that made some sort of a contribution to the district, and that might want to be considered something they've done that enhanced on the education of our kids, was that something that we want to consider, or we're going to limit it to just the amount of years that they serve?
Now, my idea on that, Mr. Murdoch, was simply to commemorate board members that actually served as elected officials. I think it might get a little convoluted if we start talking about accolades that individuals might have had, but I only, of course, it's at the will of the board. But my idea was to just, commemorate those board members that had that tenure of service, to our community.
I think. Go ahead, Mr. Murdoch.
I'm okay with that. I just wanted to make a statement and see how I feel about it, and but I'm all right with what's in there.
Mr. President, I was wondering if you could explain the reason for the 28 years? If there was a reason for that distinction instead of even 20 or 25?
Yes, ma'am. My thought behind that piece of the policy was very relative to the amount of tenure that professional employees, certified employees, would serve for retirement. I'm sorry.
All employees, classified or certified.
Classified or certified, yeah. Our employees would have to serve 28 years in order for them to retire. And of course, you know, we don't have a retirement ceremony, you know, for board members. But I think that was my rationale behind the 28 years, Ms. Wickett. And of course, that's 7 terms. You know, I know I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence, but that's 7 terms. I think that's pretty commendable.
It'd be nice to see who can do 7 terms in the current situation.
That's quite a feat.
That's a feat. It's a good accomplishment. Yes, it is.
I agree with the number of years. I think the number of years should be set in stone.
Yes.
And I think that would create a whole lot of, would alleviate a whole lot of, you know, personal situations. Any other comment or questions or any input? Any other discussion?
Just one. Have we asked them if they want their picture on?
Thank you for that, Mr. Mabry. I did take the liberty to contact Mr. Pornell because I served with both of them. I started serving with both of them when I first got elected in 2008, and I took the liberty to call them and ask them what their opinion was about it, and they were actually in awe. They were like, really, wow. You know, when you leave service as an elected official, most of the time you just fade off into the sunset and nobody remember you, but they were actually in awe. So I think I'm pretty positive that they're in agreement with having that. And if board members, if you do some research, if you call the School Boards Association, you will see that there are very few elected board members in the state of South Carolina that has served this tenure. So I think it would be commendable.
Yeah, I don't think that would be a problem because, you know, if they don't want it up, they just don't put it up. That's a minimal problem there. But anyway, any additional discussion? Is this for the first reading?
Yes, the first reading.
Okay, can we get a motion to that effect?
Mr. Chairman, I accept the board approve the first reading for policy BL, trustee portrait policy, presented on January 18th, 2022.
A second.
I've been moved and seconded that we accept the trustee board portrait policy. First reading. All in favor, let it be known by the usual sign. Online, Mr. Murdoch?
Yes.
Mrs. Simmons?
Yes.
Ms. Whitkin?
Whitkin, yes.
It's unanimous. It has been approved. Okay, we move on down to operation. Mr. Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I ask Mr. Bowman to cover human resource officer.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam Superintendent, is there a presentation for operations tonight?
No. No, sir, there are no presentations. We sent those presentations to you for information only. And if you have any questions for those, you were asked to provide those to me prior to. So.
And thank you, ma'am. And in kind, is there one for
May I ask a question about operations?
yes, ma'am, Madam Chair, Madam Wickett.
I'm sorry, did you?
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to see, Dr. Case, when we received the presentation form, it was like a PowerPoint presentation from Mr. Glaney on capital projects, and it identified each project and the status, if it were in progress or not, or when the completed date was expected. And I'm asking because of reference to the pavement of the middle school that was delayed, and so I just think that would be helpful for board members to know if there's a delay when that might take place.
Okay, no problem. I'm looking at his project here to see whether or not that's listed here. But yes, you can get that update.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right, any other questions for operations or human resources? Hearing none.
Just one question. I know a survey went out to teachers and staff. Have we been getting any feedback on that concerning returning for next year?
We have been receiving information back, yes.
information? You don't have to have specific.
Yes, sir, we received great information.
Good, thank you.
Yes, sir. Most staff is coming back.
Sounds like a win. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bowen. We now have Finance, Mr. Mabry.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. At this time, we'll recognize Ms. Ramona Barrett for our finance report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening.
Okay. Just giving you a financial update comparison to December of last year to December of this year. On our local revenue, we had an increase of $217,836.67. Our EFA funding, we had a decrease of $84,173.21. And by looking at our 135-day report and compared to our 45-day report, we had a decrease of 253.18 ADM, our average daily membership. So that's caused our decrease on our students as far as the funding. Our ESA funding, we had a decrease also of $68,649.71. Federal funding, we have $568,264.86. But normally this is due to timing of when we claim our fund, so that's why that is a little decreased. Food service, we had an increase of $385,761.16. Give us a total decrease for revenue of $127,079.12. Our expenditures and our general fund, we had a decrease of $1,361,056.80. We had a decrease in our special revenue expenditures of $40,549.01. Our federal funds, we had an increase in expenditure of $983,865.75. And this is due to the fact that we have more ESSER funds coming in, so we are spending more, and we will be claiming more. Food service had an increase in expenditures of $102,737.11. And we had a total decrease in our total expenditures of $315,292. Have anybody have any questions? I know that we did an increase in fund balance of $2.4 million, but we gotta be mindful of our EFA funding is also being decreased. So we're trying to increase our fund balance as much as we can, so just be mindful of our EFA funding decreasing as we go. Okay.
All right. You want to go ahead and present the other? Oh, I'm sorry. We just went over all that, didn't we?
Yes.
I was reading while you were speaking and everything. All right. Any questions for Ms. Barrett? Hearing none. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to request that we approve actions for 11.02 monthly revenue update, the 11.3 the monthly budget report, 11.04 the capital project budget report.
Thank you. Do we get a second?
Second.
Properly moved and second that we get the monthly revenue update. We have the monthly budget report as well as the capital project budget report. All in favor, let me know by the usual sign.
Any questions?
Opposers, nay. Mr. Murdoch?
Yes.
Mrs. Simmons?
Yes.
Ms. Whitkin?
Whitkin, yes.
Okay, it's unanimous. The motion has been carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the financial report.
Thank you so much. Curriculum and instruction. Ms. Simmons, you're not here. I'll cover that for you. Dr. Kate, Ms. Tracy McDonald.
I'm not going to go slow through it because you should have a copy of it. Do you have it? But I really want to show you the work the schools are doing. And just show you the progress. While all of the progress is not moving in the affirmative, we are progressing upward, and I wanted to be able to share that with you tonight. I'm really proud of where we've come in just a few months. So I'll draw your attention to our mid-year progress now. So we're looking at our kindergarten overall results. You know, we take math, which is a nationally normed test. So we compare ourselves to children all over the nation that are in like groups as ours. So when we compare our children all over the nation, we see that Bell's children have progressed from fall to winter. This is the test they took in the fall and now winter, by 26%. Blackstreet children had a bit of a decline. It's okay. We had Cartersville to show increase, and Hendersonville showed significant increase. These are the schools that have kindergarten. And then the district showed an overall increase. Our children are growing. I continue to be proud. They are continuing to grow. Now we have some work to do with first grade. Have some work to do with first grade. Bells continues to grow, but Cartersville, Forest Hills, Hendersonville, we're having some struggles there, but we will continue to work on those. As well as Northside continues to grow. Overall district, we had a decline in first grade in terms of our math projections there. And in math. In ELA, we had some increases. So I want you to see the significance. In ELA, we're growing. Make sure you make that note that we have a new math, we have a new ELA reading curriculum. That shows that the curriculum is definitely working, so our change works. We have a new math curriculum as well. So we're working to get that implementation succinct there. Second grade, we look at how our children are progressing in all of our elementary schools. The green shows that we are growing. And also in math, we are growing. Our children are showing progress from fall to winter. We're still struggling a little in math. We're working on those pieces. Remember, sometimes math is a little more difficult for the concepts to grasp, and building for transfer with math concepts. Our children have to know their facts. They have to understand those and be able to recapitulate that information very quickly. Okay, so we're working on all those aspects. We continue to show our growth. As we move to third grade, I continue to be proud of how my children are doing in ELA and math. Look at all of the green. Our children are continuing to grow. So our teachers are working hard, our children are working hard, and our parents are providing support. I just need for the children to come to school, for COVID to go away, so we can get back in school so we can continue to grow. I look at fourth grade. Our children continue to progress. So we're working. Look at math. Now, what does that tell you? That over time, our math scores are continuing to increase. So our children are getting proficient in math. Just that we've got to work on those basic early facts. So we'll have continued work with our parents to make sure that they're working with our children on learning those facts while they're at home. And we can work on some of those in some of our after-school programs, can't we, Dr. Crawford, to make sure. And then grade 5, our children are continuing to progress there as well. In ELA, we're having some struggles there in math a little bit, but in some of the grade levels, but we're continuing to grow. Wanted to make sure I share that with you tonight. Now let's look at how we're doing in middle school. So middle school, I'm not surprised at our 7th grade struggling. 7th grade is a difficult year. 7th grade children, they're adolescents, they just really, they struggle with who they are, where they are, why they are. So that's just a grade level that we continue to struggle with. Our 6th grade children are doing well, and our 8th grade children are doing well as well. So we're working on putting some strategies in place for our 7th grade children so we can show some significant progress there. Ninth grade. Everybody says the high school is having some struggles. Well, look at that data. The high school children are continuing to improve. We're struggling a little bit ELA. There are reasons we're struggling there because we had a significant number of children in the middle school because of COVID and because of what we encountered for the last couple of years. We had some significant gaps going into the ninth grade, but our math is continuing to grow. Okay, so overall, I'm really excited about how our children are doing. In grades 3 through 6, our children have really made some progress. And I'd like to show you RIT score means our children are learning to read. That's what the RIT score shows in reading and math. So overall, when you look at the next slide, you'll see our children have made tremendous increase in their RIT scores. Compared nationally, our children have grown, so everything is green. Not one grade level has made a decline. So our focus on school improvement has really made a difference in the schools. When you focus on the work, the children will grow. Okay. Let's continue. Continue. Okay. And I'd like just to be able to show you, I think that's an additional slide there. And that is our, let's see, I don't have that in my presentation.
SC ready.
Oh, that's SC ready. So this shows our projection. And I want to just take a moment. We always predict how we're going to do on the final state assessment. So this shows that we're halfway. So if we look at where we were last year in the spring, this says where we were in the spring of last year. Last year in the spring, just look at grade 3s. Last year on the test, we were 15.1% where media exceeded. Right now, we're at 20.71. So we're above where we were last year already, and we're just halfway mark. Grade 4, we were 13.38. We're above where we were last year. Grade 5, we were 13.3. We're not there yet, but we're just 904. I'm not really worried about that because we're at 1303. And that was at the end of the year when we took the test. And right now we're at 904. So I'm not worried. We're halfway mark and we're almost there. So I know that the children are going to continue to grow in every aspect. So it's important when you look at the data to see where we ended up last year and where we are now at the halfway mark. Even though it's in the red, we're almost surpassing where we were at the end of the year last year by where we are now. Okay? So in every aspect of where we need to be, we're going to make the target and we're going to go above the target in every grade level up here. We're going to be fine. Okay? Thank you. I'm good. We got a ways to go, but we're going to get there.
Celebrating. We need to celebrate what we've done, what we're doing, because we know that every gain is a reason to celebrate.
They are, and I'm going to be presenting the teachers and the children with some awards. Ms. Barrett let me know that I have a little pot of money I can use to incentivize my children and staff. So I will be doing that because they deserve every bit of it. Thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you, Dr. K.
Love all three.
At this time, do we have a question? No. Oh, okay.
I just said I love all three.
Oh, sorry. There you go. More green, the better it looks. Okay, at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion that we go into executive session. Upon returning to open session, action may be taken by the board on items discussed during executive session.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recommend we go into executive session for 13.01, discussion of employment, appointment, compensation, promotion, demotion, discipline, or release related to the employee employment, separation, South Carolina Code 30-4-70A1. For 13.02, discussion related to student discipline matters, South Carolina Code 3-4-70A1. And for 13.03, the receipt of legal advice regarding Marlboro-Coffin County Airport Commission presentation on 6th grade academy project, South Carolina Code 3-4-70A2.
Can we get a second?
Second.
Properly moving second that we move into executive session to discuss the items that was listed by Mr. Mabry. All in favor, let it be known by the usual sign. Ladies, Ms. Summon.
Yes.
Mr. Murdoch.
Aye.
Mrs. Whitkin.
Whitkin, yes. Can they please call it what the executive session?
It's unanimous. Let's go. We're in executive session.
Mr. Chair, may I make a statement before you go in related to executive session item 13.03? That's the item I've recused from, so I will not be, just for the record's sake, I will not be participating in the executive session on the receipt of legal advice related to the Marlboro-Coffin County Airport Commission presentation on the 6th grade academy. The legal advice y'all received is from another attorney that, just so the public understands that it's not me providing that legal advice. I will not be in that executive session. Thank you.
And so the public will know, I will be calling the legal advice on cell phone. They're waiting on standby.
Will our executive session be here or in the boardroom?
It'll be in our boardroom.
Okay.
Okay, we're live.
Live, okay. This time we entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we come out of executive session. Second.
Properly moving second that we come out of executive session at this time. All in favor, let it be known by the usual sign. Mr. Murdoch?
Yes.
Ms. Whitkin?
Whitkin, yes.
Ms. Simmons?
Yes.
It's unanimous. We out of executive session.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the recommendations for professional staff separation presented to us on January 18th, 2022.
Do we get a second?
Second.
Properly motion and second that we accept the recommendations for staff separation. All in favor, let it be known by the usual sign. Mr. Murdoch?
Yes.
Ms. Simmons?
Yes.
Ms. Whitkin? And here,
Whitkin, yes.
unanimous, the motion has been carried.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to make a recommendation that we accept the recommendations for professional staff employment presented to the board on January 18, 2022.
We get a second? Can we get a second?
Second.
Properly moving second that we accept the recommendations for staff employment. All in favor, let it be known by the usual sign. Ms. Whitkin?
Whitkin, yes.
Ms. Simmons?
Yes.
Mr. Murdoch?
Yes.
It is unanimous. The motion has been carried. Do we have another motion? Do we have a motion to go home?
No.
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. Okay,
Next item is,
You got to turn it over to Willie.
next item, I'm sorry, okay.
All right, so item 14.01 is the annual election of officers, which by board policy is to be conducted by the board attorney. Having said that, I'll entertain a motion for the election of board chairperson for the next year.
Madam, Mr. Attorney, I'd like to make a motion that we use Mr. William Bowman as our board chair.
Motion been made to elect Mr. William Bowman as board chair. Is there a second to that motion?
Okay.
Second by, I think, Ms. Mary Jones on the second. Any discussion on that motion? All right, hearing no discussion, all those in favor that are here signify by raising your hand. I can't see Mr. Bowman, so Mr. Bowman raises his hand. Unanimous here.
Yeah, I know his hand.
Ms. Wiggin,
Whitson, yes.
Ms. Simmons,
Yes.
and Mr. Murdock.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Bowman has been elected chair unanimously. Next is the election of the vice chair for the next coming year, who obviously one of the important duties would be to preside in the absence of the chair. Is there a motion to elect the vice chair?
I make a motion that we elect Ms. Patricia Simmons.
All right, Mr. Jenkins makes a motion to elect Ms. Simmons as vice chair. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Mabry, is that Mr. Bowman? Sorry, seconded by Mr. Bowman. Any discussion on that
Ask those folks online, I don't think they heard it.
motion? All right, about discussion?
Well, yeah, or nomination. Somebody said something, I don't know what it was. I didn't hear it.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to elect Ms. Simmons as vice chair, made by Mr. Jenkins, seconded by Mr. Bowman. Is there any discussion from any of the members on the telephone? No? Hearing none, all those present signify in the affirmative by raising your right hand. Unanimous for those present. Ms. Simmons?
Yes.
Mr. Murdock?
Yes.
And Ms. Wickett?
Whitson, yes.
All right, Ms. Simmons elected vice chair for the coming year by unanimous vote of the board. Mr. Bowman, you want to adjourn us?
Thank you, Mr. Duffy.
Mr. Duffy, I got a question. Mr. Bowman, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Do we have to make that in a motion that Dr. King and us administrative assistant, we got our secretary training or whatever that position is?
No, sir. That the position of secretary is filled by the superintendent ex officio, meaning that by virtue of being the superintendent, that person is the secretary, so it doesn't require a vote anymore.
Just want to make sure.
All right, any other discussions?
I have something, Mr. Bowman, if I may, take a
ma'am.
moment to address the public and the board before I pass the gavel. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I just want to say that in calendar year 2021, the Board of Trustees, we met over 40 times. We dealt with the continued pandemic, the hiring of a new superintendent, mask requirements, budget provisos, and security challenges. We have combated many things by making policies to address TikTok challenges, bullying, and achieve academic advances that are not for our students. This board has approved multiple bonuses for our overwhelmingly appreciated staff, and I feel like we've done a lot. I know we can go far when we walk together, and it's my hope that we continue to hold each other up and not take each other down. I want to express my appreciation for Attorney Mr. Burt Duffy. I'm grateful to not be in need of much legal counsel in my life. And I found that Mr. Duffy has been a tremendous help to our district this year. I feel like in his advice, he teaches not right or wrong, but always fair. I'd like to leave with the words of Martin Luther King as we celebrated him just yesterday, and that the ultimate measure of a man, or in this instance the board, is not where he stands in moments of conflict and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. It's been an honor to serve this board, and Mr. Bowman, we trust that your leadership will take us far. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Wickett. Any other discussion or items or mentions from the board? All right, hearing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you, board members.